But now I'm super happy to give the word to Mohameth. Mohameth is actually the only of the speakers which was there at the very first edition of the Knowledge Graph Forum, which we did in 2019, just before COVID changed the world.
True.
And the last time I had details from him was in a Zoom call during COVID. Yeah. And I'm very happy to get an update of the Blue Brain project. The stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian. So I'm happy to be back at Knowledge Graph Forum to share our efforts on using RDF-based knowledge graph for simulation neuroscience. So I'm working at a project at EPFL named Blue Brain Project, so founded by Professor Henry Markram. So I need this for next. So we are located in Geneva, in the campus biotech, not far from the lake, beautiful place. And the goal of Blue Brain is to build, digitally build and simulate mouse brain. So using a data-driven approach and following this high-level workflow. So the first step is data organization, acquiring data about cells in the brain, 3D shape of neurons, for example, electrical behavior, building model out of that, and simulate the models, validate those models, and analyze the simulation result, and then hopefully refine and make some publication back to the community. This is quite an iterative process, and not just for neuroscience, but quite for many data science and data-driven projects out there. So here I'm not a neuroscientist, so I pick one of the neuroscience paper and get this picture that explain a little bit the process. So some of the data that they need to build models are, for example, 3D shapes of a neuron. They call it neuron morphologies. So those data are acquired through experiment called neuron reconstruction experiment, morphology reconstruction. So there is a mouse brain that is sliced, stained, the cells are stained, and then high-resolution images are taken. There is some anatomist that does the reconstruction, sometimes by hand, that get digitalized. The electrical activity can be recorded using some device. Sorry, I need to go back. I guess it's like here, some cell patch clamp techniques. Get EFIS recordings, and those data can be combined and used to build a single cell model that then can be combined to build circuit model, brain region model, and whole brain models. So as I said, the first step here is data organization. So the data in neuroscience is very dispersed, it's heterogeneous. As I said, these 3 morphologies, these time series data, EFIS recordings, but there are also parameters to constrain these models that come from literature that are the result of many types of experiment. The data can be about subcellular ion channels, can be cellular level, can be circuit level, can be brain region level, can be whole brain level. So sort of different level of organization of the brain. So they needed something to really organize this data and make it available for modelers that could consume it and build their models from there. So this is clearly a use case for RDF. So we set out to build some years ago a knowledge graph stack to support this data organization step. So here I'm showing a typical knowledge graph stack that you know. So there are, okay, it's this one. So there are various data, as I said, coming from different sources, different modalities. They need to be ingested, somehow transformed, validated, curated into a semantic layer, and then different applications come and can carry this data. So some time ago, I read a paper, I think it was a SciGraph team at ISWC that say integration and disintegration. I think I feel the same way when I see here. So we integrate here and we disintegrate different use cases here. So the first step then, if you want to build a knowledge graph, is to have the software stack, I would say. So first thing we did is to build a system called Blue Brain Nexus, which is really bringing together into a unified API a couple of open source tools out there. So you might know some of these already. So they show here Cassandra, sorry, but we use Postgres now in the latest version. But you have Elasticsearch for some document use cases, search. And then we use BlazeGraph back then. If you want to know about the system, it's published in Semantic Web Journal, if you want to read about it. So before somebody asks why we are still using BlazeGraph, so I just find this code from Wikidata Service, where they are also looking for replacement for BlazeGraph, and we are just following them. So we are also looking for that. So I heard that there is a clever system talk later, so I'll be happy to learn more about that system. So we're looking to replace BlazeGraph with something else. And I'll talk more about the different use cases we have around this. So it's made of a data store. So Postgres now is the primary store. So when you interact with the API, it's where the journal and all the events are being stored. Then that data get projected into two different systems, Elasticsearch and BlazeGraph for query, document search or SparkQL, etc. And we have a couple of clients, Python clients or CLI clients or UI clients on top of this. Then you have the system. Well, you need to live in an ecosystem. So we had to really hook it with the Blue Brain infrastructure. So authentication in there, a couple of scientific pipelines that need to read and write in there, the different storages that we have, and the different other clients need to consume. So just to show that it's not an isolated piece of stack, it's part of a large ecosystem, and the API was designed really, and the technology choices to be interoperable as part of the infrastructure. That was really, really, really important there. So this is the software sort of stack. And of course, we need to talk about a little bit the content and the data, what do you put in there. So as I said, the data come from many sources, different modality. Here I'm showing different experiments, different protocols. Here I'm showing, just highlighting some example for neural morphology, a typical example for reconstruction. For example, there is the subject here. This is the mouse. They get the brain. There is sort of a slice, whole size part clamp. You get a part slice. Some other activity occur here involving some agent, using some protocol. You get another fixed end slice, etc., until you get, for example, this is an image of a slice, let's say. These are the 3D morphologies, literally, and somebody has to reconstruct this. Then you get a piece of data in different format, SWC, ASCII, whatever, with metadata, etc. And for example, these two patterns are about neural morphology, but as you can see, they are quite different. They are quite different in just what is involved into generating them, and we wanted to have a way to also capture these things. So first thing we do is we use W3C Provo as a way just to reconstruct, to record the provenance information in terms of entity, activity, agent, and etc. So that's the first thing, and then we generalize that across most of the data we have. So what we realized when we were doing this is, okay, for example here, this is the two things I showed, but this is, for example, the electrophysiological stuff. We use W3C Provo, but still, there are a lot of diversity involved, and we really wanted to have in the knowledge graph some base, really some description that is common to all of these things. And we created a schema called MINDS, which is just a set of metadata in the form of a SHACL, actually. So these are data sets. They have distribution, from schema.org. We just where the data is, the size, the format, the name, etc. Who contributed in there, sort of the type, where in the brain this data is located in terms of brain region. I'll talk about this a little bit more. Well, what is the subject? Is it a rat data? Is it a mouse data? What is the age of that subject? What is the strain? This type of information, and some license. So when we have the data in there and we release it, we want to make sure that these metadata there, because when the scientists come to build a model, look for data, well, they start by a region of the brain, so it's important to know where the data is. They want to know the data type, they want to know the subject, and from which lab these data come from, typically. So that's just what I explained, actually. So I can move on. But this mind schema is not the whole story, because there's a lot more things to say. As I said, we have provenance information. So we have this base description that we expect all piece of data in the knowledge graph to have. But for example, in our knowledge graph data set is a specialization of entity, which hold the information about the W3 provo in terms of generation, derivation, etc. Data set gets associated with a bunch of annotation that we use the W3C, the web annotation data model, an extension of that at least, and we annotate this morphology, these EPHs, with, for example, the cell classification. What type of cell is this? Is it a pyramidal cell, etc., and also the electrical classification here, for example, and a set of quality measurement to signal if the data was curated or not, etc., if there was a specific scientific quality metrics that was measured for this data. And of course, all the values for these properties, well, we want to standardize them sort of in set of ontologies as well. For example, we do have quality metric ontology, cell type ontology, brain region ontology, the data types, the contribution that come from a role ontology as well, the species from, for example, NCBI organizational classification here, etc., etc. So the data model is really, really big if you want to look at it as a whole. So next slide, I will highlight just this one. We call brain modeling ontology, which is sort of the core vocabulary about Blue Brain, high-level business a little bit. So basically, what we are trying to model, like in this vocabulary, is really, we have an entity. This can be like a biological brain component. This is a cell, brain region, whatever is in the brain that they want to model. Okay? And we build a model of that. So there is a model of a cell, there is a model of a region, there is a model of the whole brain, etc., etc. And those models, they get classified. They have set of classification scheme, the type of cell we are talking about, etc. And for example, there are workflows to really go and use and generate these entities. The workflow, the activity follow workflow plan, specific matter execution of that workflow that have agent involved, etc., etc. So this is really a very high-level view of the type of entities we are dealing with and the relationship they have between them. So of course we use very specialized ontology, as I said, brain region, cell type, that extend external ontologies. We did not build all of this ourselves. So I'm just going to maybe highlight one of them, which is the brain region. So if there is one metadata that is important, is where in the brain. Every piece of data, where in the brain, and we capture that through brain region. So we use an atlas. So atlas is a 3D sort of representation of a mouse brain, released by Allen Brain Science in US, that is being changed, updated and tailored to Blue Brain need in-house. And every piece of data in knowledge graph needs to be projected in there. We need to know where it is in the brain and enable scientists to have a way of searching that. So okay, I think this is being executed. So typically this is a application we have. So this is not the latest version, so we're going to open source this year the latest version. But you can see the brain region ontology being here. So part of it comes from Alan, the original. They call it parcellation, but we do augment it. And so typically this is definitely a JSON-LD file that this application is loading from our knowledge graph. And you can see here some dots. These are the cell types, the density of cells in there. Sorry. Okay. And this is just to show typically what scientists expect is they come in the brain, they select a region using the brain region ontology, and they want to see what data is available in there. So this is typically a use case for these ontologies. And every piece of data is expected to have the brain region. It can also have a XYZ sometimes, because the morphology, we might know exactly where they are in this atlas, but not all piece of data would have a XYZ in this space, but they are required to have a brain region. Okay. So just wanted to show here a little bit when we talk to scientists how we explain this. Maybe this audience, they don't need this, but typically how we see this is, these are our vocabulary, the things we care about in the organization. We care about neuromorphology, subject, etc. And these are described using our system JSON-LD. So this is very important for our developers. So no RDF turtle or whatever, for sure. But JSON-LD was very useful, especially when we were able to really build one single context that we automatically add to every piece of data in a way that they don't have to care about in which namespace these properties they belong to. So the knowledge engineers in my team could really map it to whatever they want under the hood using this context. But the other developers, they really deal with for them it's just a JSON under the hood. So when they push a JSON like this. Nexus adds automatically a context and allows them to push it into the triple store and having these IDs there, typically. So this gets constrained with SHACL. So we started using SHACL even before it became a standard, I would say. So we have pretty much hundreds of them by now. And we use also JSON-LD for them and store them in our knowledge graph, which when you deal with the API, it's always going to validate against a SHACL schema. So how do we serve these data models, ontologies, and schema to users? So this is what we show. This is OntoDoc, a modified version of OntoDoc, which is an open source tool out there. I think it's under OntoSpy now. That could be used to generate documentation. And we have an automated pipeline that just read the SHACL and the ontologies, and anytime we release it, they see something like this. For example, I'm showing here the data set. The SHACL get turned into a table like this. You see the hierarchy, some metadata and properties and the expected type of these values and some cardinality. And they could come search and prepare their payload and deal with the API using this. So we have many teams at Blue Brain that are working on different projects and that they have their own pipeline, they consume the release data, and isolation was very important, having a way to bucket the data and assign fine-grained ACL. So people could really isolate and assign ACLs to their data as they want. But I'll show later, we have also a way of bringing them back together so that people can access them all. So we organize the data by organization and project under the hood. And every resource in the system, there is a life cycle. So you get created, and then every time anything that happens, there is a journal that keep all the event log, and the revisions get updated. You can associate a specific tag, just like a Git tag, to a specific revision for release if you want, and then you can get deprecated. So nothing is never deleted in the system, but things can get deprecated. And every event that ever happened to a piece of data is kept and known for audit information. So the person who created it or updated the data is also kept for reference. So I mentioned that we sort of bucket the data, but there is a way in the system to really bring them back, enable like a federated sort of view of that. So Nexus will enable anybody, to create what we call views. This is like you can carry the graph, right? Like you write a SPARQL query that's going to carry the graph, whatever project you like, and you can filter data by type or data that conform to a given schema or data in a specific tag or version, and have Nexus automatically project the result of that query either as a document into Elasticsearch or into a specific namespace into the Blaze graph or a SPARQL endpoint. And these two endpoints are published and available to anybody in the project to carry and use. This is really a way to select specifically and release specific part of the big graph etc. So we have this, I mentioned SPARQL view, and we have a way to group them. So this is a set of SPARQL view that can be targeted in parallel, and the same for Elasticsearch. So we needed to have Elasticsearch for aggregation, very great at slice and dicing, which we found SPARQL not really great at. So our users really wanted to have a way to combine different pieces into one document using a SPARQL construct query and project that into Elasticsearch to write document queries. So, and then we have also the ability to publish portals. Okay, so no access to my video, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. So, but this is what the portal look like. So you can scan it here, it's public, available. So typically the scientists, once they want to release data, they want to publish it out there. So this is the result of a SPARQL query, by the way. So we have what we call Studio that's going to query the knowledge graph and get set of result into this sort of table view. So you can write a text, have an abstract sort of view, and then these plugins, these UIs are driven by the JSON-LD payload, so result of the SPARQL query, and the system using is able to display the information this way. So these are specific plugins to visualize specific type of data. So if you follow this link, you'll be seeing the live portal actually of this, which is public actually. And yeah, we also serve the data through programmatic. So the API is available to anybody in the project. But also we do have a Python package, open source as well, called Nexus Forge, that can carry the data. You can retrieve data, any data if you have the ID in the project. Given that you have access, you can write SPARQL query, Elasticsearch query using it. It hides a lot of the complexity for the people in the building. But one of the most use case we end up with is people, they really have a lot of acronyms for brain regions, like MS or for cell types, and they just want to know what is the canonical ID or representation in metadata, and they call just resolve, put the text, and get back what the knowledge graph is telling them to use. So I think that's it for me. So happy to take questions.
Thank you. It's a very interesting topic for me. I have two questions. The first one is there any ongoing work like to apply or use this to extract information automatically from, let's say, the new publications from PubMed and to align the concepts extracted to this ontology?
Yeah, so we don't have a use case of building ontologies from literature, but we do have use case from extracting data, like parameters, to constrain models, for example, from literature. So there is a machine learning team, obviously, there, with whom we have some work in the past on enabling that, like building a graph out of a set of literature paper. So recently, we started a project on writing, for example, automatic paper. For example, if you come and get a neural morphology, for example, you could collect using the provenance all the protocols that was used along the way of getting that data, and LLMs could be called and provided with those papers to write method section, for example, of a paper. So this is work in progress, I would say, and we hope to talk about that soon in other sessions. So that's how we use literature typically, is really to extract parameters, data, and bring them back into the knowledge graph. So.
Okay, thanks. The second one is about the Blue Brain Project itself. Like, I follow this quite a lot 10 years ago. It has 10 years time frame. Like, it was 2013, I guess. So how's the project going? In the next years? I mean, you have the plan.
So the project is doing great. So, but yeah, it's a publicly funded project by Swiss government, and yeah, so we are finalizing the project, and we have exciting news that's gonna open source and release all the great work that the team have been doing for the last actually 20 years before the end of the year. So we'll be releasing exciting set of works that bring together all the different pieces, all the different work. It's obviously a big team. It's not just this part. We have brought together all these tools into one single platform that we're gonna, I think, talk about before the end of the year. So,
very impressive project, very complex modeling, chain of models actually. I was curious whether you're aware of the choice of the middle entity over there, which is the dataset. And I see that you're defining or using this MIND standard. I'm wondering whether you're aware, probably you're aware of DCAT. There's another model for describing metadata of datasets. And if you know about the motivations of defining your own in comparison to using DCAT.
Yeah, so I know because I did this. I'm the guilty here. So the challenge is, so when we started this years ago, we say, we're going to follow these standards, right? So we went out there, we found DCAT, we realized, okay, somehow it was a little bit ported into schema.org, which has a lot, so we used schema.org. Then we said, oh, we needed prov stuff. So, okay, we go use prod. And then we said, oh, schema.org, the distribution part is very lightweight because it doesn't have really notion of storage that we needed because we deal with data that can be duplicated in many data centers, etc. So we need to augment. So as the years goes by, we had these little things we need to add here and there. So the namespace becomes an explosion. We could not manage it anymore because it's very hard for the people to know, at least in my team that deals with the namespace, where this term come from in terms of namespace, etc. It becomes very, and we end up saying, look, and especially writing these particle queries and maintaining them. So we say, okay, we're going to basically put everything under our namespace. That's why we end up saying, look, we're going to take everything back to our namespace. Not everything. Some still use Provo or schema.org, etc. But for simplification reason, and then when we publish this, we can really map back to standards out there. But it's become a publication strategy, but internally with the pipelines, when we deal with the pipelines and etc., we wanted to simplify it. So I would say that's really the reason why we end up having this custom, etc. But I would say, if you take the data set, yeah, 90% is more schema.org. I mean, we did add like very few things we felt were missing in schema.org, sort of. So we rely, we use Provo heavily here. Even though we have renamed a little bit some stuff. But I would say, yeah, we use namespace, our own stuff, but overwhelmingly we are based on some standard out there. Yep.
To add briefly, in the machine learning area, something called croissant has been defined a while ago. It's a format used for machine learning data sets with also user participants like Google and others. And it also has a lot of what you just mentioned about storage, licenses, and so on. It's adapted by Hugging Face, SHACL, so larger of these providers. So that it's another extension of DCAT schema.org, which may be something to look into.
Absolutely, thank you. I didn't know about that. Yeah.
I come from Neuroscience, so I really enjoy it. And I wonder actually how this can be applied actually to drive new hypotheses or to maybe know what to prioritize in the next steps in a research lab, for instance.
Yeah, so that's, so one of the use case I don't know if I can answer directly that question, as I'm not a scientist, but what we have seen when the scientists, they come in there, so the primary use case is really looking for data in a specific area they are specialized, because they are modelers of hippocampus, modelers of isocortex, or modelers of thalamus, and they look for data there. So most of the time the data is sparse. There's not enough data, and some of the use case we worked on is really bring a little bit of inference in there. For example, they might be looking data pyramidal cells. They did not find it. Maybe there is a similar type of class cells in similar type of class that they could put. We do have an inference service that runs on the graph that will go and pull them, leveraging the ontology relationship, and pull that, for example, or another region that is maybe similar etc. So we do have that strategy to help them really say, okay, I want to build a model of this part of the brain, but I don't have enough data for that. Can I leverage the graph to go and get more? For example, we do compute, for example, for these morphologies, 3D embeddings using some algorithm there, using also the graph, so that they can find similar morphology, no matter where else they are, maybe similar in terms of shape, or similar in terms of types, etc., etc. So we do help them on really getting more data for the criteria they want, leveraging the data was stored, but also some inference to get more out of that. But we are not yet like at a sort of suggesting them hypothesis or for them for their science. Yeah.
So in theory, you cannot actually tell, hey, there is like a lack of evidence in this region, so you need actually to
a lack of what? Sorry.
Like a lack of evidence. So to describe like a one phenotype of cell or something like that.
No.
Okay. Yep. Thanks.
Good. Thank you very much again.